I'm going to tell you something that will make you uncomfortable. There is an entire world unfolding right in front of your eyes that you cannot see. Not because it isn't there, but because you were never taught how to look. You have been trained to perceive only what suits the system, only what keeps the machine running, only what makes you productive, obedient, predictable. But there are cracks in that constructed reality, and some people have learned to look through them, and what they see on the other side changes everything. It's not that they are special. They weren't born with a mystical gift, nor were they chosen by some cosmic force. They simply woke up, and awakening is not instant enlightenment. It is a brutal process of unlearning everything you were told was real. It is tearing away layer after layer of conditioning until you reach something most people never touch: naked truth. And that truth is not comfortable. It is not reassuring. It is unsettling, because it reveals that everything you considered solid is smoke. Everything you thought was important is distraction. And everything you were taught to chase is a trap designed to keep you asleep. Nikola Tesla saw it, and he paid the price for seeing it. A genius who could visualize complete inventions in his mind before ever building them, who spoke of receiving information from sources he could not explain, who claimed to connect with invisible frequencies that contained universal knowledge. And society called him insane. It marginalized him. It let him die in poverty, because what Tesla saw threatened the foundations of established power. He saw a future of free energy, of technology serving humanity rather than profit, of connection with dimensions of reality that would demolish narratives of control. Tesla said something few fully understand. The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous centuries. But here is what they don't tell you. That statement was not speculation, it was testimony. Tesla was describing what he himself experienced, phenomena that did not fit within known physical laws, perceptions that transcended the five senses, knowledge that did not come from study, but from direct connection with invisible information fields. And he was not alone. Throughout history, every true visionary, every revolutionary thinker, every person who changed the collective paradigm saw something others could not see. Plato and his world of ideas. Einstein intuiting that time was relative long before he could prove it mathematically. Jung and the collective unconscious. All of them accessed levels of perception that transcend consensus reality. But here comes the uncomfortable question. What exactly do they see? What do the awakened perceive that the rest ignore? First, they see patterns. While most people get lost in individual events, the awakened see the underlying structures that generate them. They see repeating cycles. They see how wars are never fought for the official reasons, how economic crises always benefit the same few, how media narratives synchronize perfectly to steer collective attention away from what truly matters. It's not conspiracy, it's pattern recognition. It's seeing the forest while others only see trees. Second, they see energy. And this is where things get truly strange. Because energy is not a metaphor, it is real. Everything in the universe is energy vibrating at different frequencies. Solid matter is just condensed energy vibrating slowly. And the awakened have developed the ability to perceive those vibrations. They enter a place and feel its density or lightness. They meet someone and sense their frequency before they speak. They detect lies not through words, but through the energetic dissonance they produce. Tesla understood this deeply. That's why he spoke of 3, 6, and 9 as the key numbers of the universe. That's why he designed technologies based on resonant frequencies. He knew reality is not solid. It is an ocean of interacting waves. And those who learn the language of those waves can navigate reality in ways that seem impossible to those who believe only in the tangible. Third, they see hidden intentions, not because they are paranoid, but because they have learned to read beyond words. Words are the most effective tool of deception that exists. You can say one thing while feeling and planning the opposite. But energy does not lie. Intention leaks through, and the awakened detect it. That's why they are uncomfortable to be around. That's why they are difficult to manipulate. Because they do not process only verbal content. They process the entire field of information a person emits. Fourth, they see interconnection. While most people experience life as a collection of separate events, the awakened perceive the web. Everything is connected. Your thought this morning influenced a conversation this afternoon. That conversation set off a chain of events that will affect someone tomorrow. There are no coincidences, only synchronicities, meaningful patterns that reveal an invisible order behind apparent randomness. Jung dedicated his life to studying this. Synchronicity. Those moments when you think of someone and they call. When you need an answer and a book falls open to the exact page. When a series of seemingly unrelated events leads you precisely where you needed to be. Materialist science dismisses this as coincidence. The awakened know it is the deep structure of reality revealing itself. Fifth, they see time differently, and this is crucial. Most people live time as a straight line, past, present, future in fixed sequence. But the awakened experience something else. Moments where time dilates or compresses. Experiences where past and future collapse into an expanded present. Precognitive dreams that show events before they happen. Déjà vu so intense you know with certainty you have lived that exact moment before. Einstein proved that time is relative, that it depends on the observer, but few grasp the implications. If time is not absolute, if past and future are constructs of our limited perception, then, at deeper levels of consciousness, all time coexists. And the awakened, in certain states, access that simultaneity. That's why Tesla could see complete inventions before building them. He wasn't imagining them. He was perceiving them in a future that already existed in potential. Sixth, they see entities. And this is where most people are lost, because this completely challenges the materialist paradigm. Yet the awakened, across cultures and eras, report the same thing. There are non-physical intelligences, beings that exist at frequencies outside ordinary perceptual range. Some call them spirits, others interdimensional entities, others condensed thought forms. The name doesn't matter. The experience is consistent. Tesla spoke of receiving information from external sources. He described visions that visited him, ideas arriving fully formed, as if transmitted to him, and he was not alone. Socrates spoke of his daemon, an inner voice that guided him. Mozart said his symphonies arrived complete. He merely transcribed them. William Blake conversed with angels, madness, or access to levels of reality the dominant paradigm refuses to acknowledge. Seventh, they see the matrix. And I use that word deliberately, because it is the most accurate. The awakened perceive physical reality as a projection, a construction generated by consciousness. It is not solid. It is not fixed. It is malleable. It responds to intention. And scientific evidence, especially in quantum physics, is converging on this truth that mystics have always known. The observer collapses the wave function. Consciousness determines reality. The double-slit experiment proved it. Particles behave as probability waves until they are observed. At that moment, they collapse into a defined position. Consciousness literally creates physical reality. This is not philosophy, it is experimentally verified science. But its implications are so radical that most people ignore them. Because if reality is a projection of consciousness, then everything we consider solid and immutable is in truth fluid and moldable. The awakened experience this directly. They manifest realities through focused intention. They alter probabilities with their presence. They heal illnesses that medicine considers incurable, not through magic, but through deep understanding of how reality actually works. If everything is energy and consciousness directs energy, then changing consciousness changes energy, which changes physical manifestation. Eighth, they see the programming, and this may be the most disturbing of all. The awakened see with brutal clarity how society is designed to keep people asleep. Education that teaches memorization and obedience rather than thinking. Media that doesn't inform but programs emotions and beliefs. An economic system that forces people to work so much they have no energy left to question. Entertainment that numbs the mind instead of expanding it. The entire system is calibrated to produce obedient consumers, not conscious beings. And the awakened see the machinery operating. They see how from childhood we are molded to fit predefined roles, taught what to desire, what to fear, what to value. How institutions, from family to government, function as control mechanisms that perpetuate the status quo. Not necessarily out of malice, but because it is a self-perpetuating system. The asleep train the next generation of the asleep without even realizing it. Tesla saw this. That's why his vision of free energy was never implemented. Because free energy means free people. People who do not depend on the system, who cannot be controlled through need. And that is incompatible with existing power structures. That's why he was sabotaged. That's why he died in poverty, while others stole his ideas and patented them for corporate profit. Ninth, they see purpose. While most people live on autopilot, following social scripts without questioning them, the awakened see that there is a reason for their existence, not an externally assigned purpose, but an inner mission, something only they can do, a unique frequency only they can emit. And once they see that purpose, they cannot ignore it. It becomes the axis of their life. It is not necessarily grand. It's not about saving the world or becoming famous. It's about fulfilling your specific function in the cosmic web. It may be simple, it may be quiet, but it is yours. And the awakened feel that pull, that inner call that guides them even when they don't know exactly where it leads. Tesla felt it. That's why he rejected money and fame. That's why he kept working on what he believed mattered, even when it wasn't profitable. He was responding to something deeper than social incentives. 10th, they see death differently, not as an end, but as a transition. They have had enough experiences, visions, and perceptions of continuity of consciousness to know, not believe, but know, that the death of the body is not the end. Consciousness persists, transcends, transforms, and that understanding removes the fundamental fear that governs most of humanity. The fear of death is the root of nearly all other fears, and it is the most effective mechanism of control. If you fear death, you will accept almost any condition just to survive. But the awakened have seen beyond it. They have had out-of-body experiences. They have remembered past lives. They have connected with beings no longer in physical form. And those experiences leave no doubt we are more than these bodies, much more. Now comes the crucial question. If the awakened see all this, why can't they simply show it to others? Why does the majority remain blind? Because seeing requires more than eyes. It requires openness. It requires a willingness to let go of certainty. And most people are not willing. They cling to consensus reality because any alternative is too threatening. If everything you believe about reality is false, then who are you? If the world is not as you were told, then what else were you lied to about? It's easier to label the awakened as crazy than to face those questions. Moreover, mystics have observed a phenomenon for centuries. You cannot awaken someone who is not ready. Awakening cannot be forced. It is an internal process each consciousness must undergo at its own pace. You can offer information. You can point out the cracks in the matrix. But if a person is not ready to look, they simply will not see. Their perceptual filters will discard the information as noise. And here is what is truly unsettling. There is evidence that certain levels of perception are deliberately suppressed, not necessarily by a human conspiracy, but by the very structure of consensus reality, like a morphogenetic field that keeps most people vibrating within a limited frequency range. Those who attempt to move beyond that range encounter resistance from their own nervous system, programmed to maintain homeostasis, from the social environment that punishes deviation, and from forces that may operate at levels we are only beginning to understand. Tesla experienced this resistance constantly. Every time he tried to release technology that would empower humanity, he encountered opposition, not only from commercial competitors, but from forces that seemed to operate behind the scenes, ensuring certain knowledge did not spread. His laboratories were burned, his patents were stolen, his funding was cut, as if the system itself had self-defense mechanisms against those who tried to change the game too radically. So what do you do with this information? How do you process the fact that there may be levels of reality you are not perceiving, that your view of the world may be a tiny fraction of what actually exists? First, question everything. Do not accept any narrative without examining it, not to become paranoid, but because critical thinking is the first step toward expanded perception. Ask, who benefits if I believe this? What real evidence do I have? What am I assuming without verifying? Second, silence the noise. Constant overstimulation is a form of perceptual suppression. It keeps your mind busy with external stimuli so you never look inward, because it is in silence, in mental stillness, that subtler perceptions emerge. Meditate, not as a religious practice, but as mental hygiene, as training to distinguish your true inner voice from conditioning. Third, pay attention to anomalies. Those moments that don't fit, synchronicities, vivid dreams that feel more real than waking life, intuitions that prove correct without logical reason. Don't dismiss them. They are cracks in the matrix, signals that more is happening than your ordinary filters allow you to see. Fourth, experiment. Expanded perception is not theoretical, it is experiential. Try techniques that have traditionally opened doors: deep meditation, sensory deprivation, sacred plants used responsibly, trance states. Shamans across cultures developed methods to alter consciousness and access other dimensions of reality, not for entertainment, but because those dimensions contained crucial information. Fifth, study those who saw. Read Tesla, read Jung, read the mystics, the visionaries, the revolutionaries of thought, not to believe blindly, but to map the territory, to understand that you are not alone if you begin to perceive strange things, that there is an ancient tradition of consciousness explorers who left maps of the invisible terrain. And sixth, be patient. Awakening is not an event, it is a process. You may have moments of expanded perception followed by periods where everything feels normal again. That is part of the process. Your nervous system needs time to integrate expanded levels of perception. Forcing it only creates confusion or, worse, psychological destabilization. But here is the deepest truth. What the awakened see is not a privilege, it is a responsibility. Because once you see, you cannot unsee. Once you know certain truths, you must decide what to do with them. Do you share them knowing you will be ridiculed? Do you keep them and live in conscious solitude? Do you use them for personal benefit or for the collective good? Tesla chose to share, and he was destroyed for it. Others have chosen silence and live with the tension of knowing truths they cannot express. There is no correct option, only the eternal tension between vision and survival, between truth and social acceptance. What is certain is this: the world needs the awakened now more than ever. Humanity stands at a crossroads. The year Systems that sustain civilization are collapsing. Old narratives are losing power. And in this chaotic transition, the minds that can see beyond are the ones capable of guiding toward new possibilities. But it is also true that mass awakening is dangerous to power structures. A conscious humanity cannot be controlled. It does not accept authority without questioning. It does not consume without reflection. It does not obey without understanding. That is why awakening is resisted so fiercely, not by your boss or your government, but by the system itself, which depends on your sleep to function. So the final question is this: are you willing to see, really see? Because seeing has a price. The price is solitude, misunderstanding, being considered strange, losing the comfort of certainty, living with more questions than answers, carrying knowledge you cannot easily share. But there is also a gift. The gift is freedom. Freedom from control narratives. Freedom from the fear that manipulates the masses. Freedom from the smallness of a life lived on autopilot. And the direct experience that you are far more than you were told. That reality is far vaster than you were taught. That there is magic, mystery, and infinite possibility waiting to be discovered. Tesla died poor but free. Free from the chains that enslave most people. And his legacy, though suppressed for decades, eventually emerged. Because truth has that quality. It can be buried, it can be denied, but it always finds a way to resurface, always. So decide, do you keep sleeping comfortably, or do you open your eyes even if it hurts? Because once you see what the awakened see, there is no going back. And perhaps, just perhaps, that is exactly what you need. If you made it to the end of this video, comment, "I am in universal vibration," and I will personally reply. And if this content resonated with you, subscribe to be part of it, and hit like if you enjoyed it. Until next time.